Yo, what's going on? Back with the financial gallery. So back with another video today. This is something I also wanted to plan for a long time. Then again, we're gonna talk about what is inflation. It's funny enough, I just recorded this right before this video, but I was on mute the entire time. So part two, here we go. Let's get it done. So right? The reported definition of inflation is the general level, right? So if you search this up, this is what you'll see. The general level of the way prices for goods and services increases over time. So if you have 3% inflation, right, something that costs $100 today will cost about $103 next year, right? Just to go through that mental exercise. But I think it's important for us, in this time of society to question everything because we have to. Why? Right? If we have tractors, automated manufacturing, AI and supercomputers in our pocket. Why are prices going up over time? Prices should be coming down, if anything, right? You feel me? Why are prices still rising? Right? So I think it's important for us to look at inflation, right, from a deeper level, right? We should look at it as the expansion of the money supply, right? I'm gonna say it two more times. Expansion of the money supply, right? It's the expansion of the money supply. But like, what does that mean, right? The reason why I do that is because you really have to realize what you're actually saying. Like, there's a reason why words, are placed in a sentence for a reason. Each word has a strategic importance to a sentence, right? So, what is the money supply? Is what you should ask, right? Is what is the important question to ask, and why is it expanding? Right. Well, the money supply is right. So here's the definition: the total amount of money in circulation or in existence in a country, state, nation, community, whatever it may be. So, um, right, and this literally just includes your cash, right, cold hard cash, your checking account, and your savings account. That's it, right? So the money supply is the expansion in cash, checkings, and savings in a country. That right. So let's look at inflation like that. So then again, right, how does it expand? Right. Well, one way it expands is through fractional reserve banking, right? But what the heck is that? So, in an example, I work hard all my life. I have $100,000 under my mattress. I say, man, I don't want to do this anymore. I feel like I'm going to get robbed. Let me go put it in a bank. The bank says, oh, okay, we'll take this 100 grand, right? And I'm going to go lend it out for 200 grand. Cool. If that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. But one may ask themselves, wait, where did you get that extra 100 grand from? Right? And the answer is they didn't. They just created it. That's the way fractional reserve banking works, right? The government allows banks to say, yo, you're verified with us. So when somebody gives you 100 grand, I'm going to legally enable you to send out 200 grand, right? So let's look at the real life implications of this, right? You have a seller who's selling a home for $100,000. Two people come on them, pull up on them. They're like, yo, I got my 100 grand. It's been under the mattress for a long time. I'm ready to buy this house. I've been living in an apartment for too long. And then another man comes around and says, wait a second, I just put my 100 grand in the bank. He said I can get a loan for 200 grand. So give me that house for 200 grand. Right? Now the seller's like, hey, shoot, fine on me. I'll sell my house for 200 grand, right? As he should, right? I don't blame, I say it again, I don't blame the structure of a society on a single individual, right? We should all do the same, right? If someone comes up to you and says, yeah, I'm going to buy your house for more than it costs, you sell the house. Like, you know, um, but the problem with that, then again, right? That so of course they don't get the homes, but boom, now we have inflation. Right? Now we have inflation. So let's go further down this path. Like so now the seller, he takes his money, he puts that 200 grand in the bank. Now the bank says, "Oh, okay, I'm going to give this guy 400 grand." Right? So it's been an extra $200,000 created out of thin air for nothing. Like nobody had to put in the work, right? Blood, sweat, and tears, right? It was just quite literally the click of a button. Very interesting to think about. So following down this path again, now I take that 400 grand and I'm about to go buy a house, right? Now scale this to 8 billion people. I just named like four, five, six people, right? Scale that to millions and billions of people. Think about I take the money here, I loan here, he creates the money to loan here, I put my money in here it just keeps going up, right? So in this example, right, I'm like, hey, the seller's like, hey, I know I understand you got 400 grand. but I'm gonna need 450, right? I'm gonna need 450. The reason why, I want to bring up this example is because it's like you can blame the seller for selling for 450. Maybe he's being a little greedful, or maybe he is, right? But the true issue is that, you know, that 400,000 was effectively created out of thin air. Nobody had to work for it, right? Nobody had to put in blood, sweat, and tears. So I just want to bring that in briefly, like, and I'll wrap that up at the end. So, right, in another example, it's quite literally this simple. If there's $100,000 and 100 housing units, right, the price per home is $100. Let's just keep the math simple, right? So now, but what if there's $200,000 available? I was able to, right? The whole community got a loan. Everyone got a loan, right? Now the price per home goes up. You see what I'm saying? Right? It's always going to be easier to, you know, make more money than it is to make more homes. So, I didn't have this on the example, but what if, right, now there's 400,000. But what if we produced 50% more housing, right? 400,000 divided by 150 is still more than the original price of a home, right? So, this is what causes inflation, right? I say it again, why are prices still rising? We have tractors, automated manufacturing, AI, and supercomputers, right? It's because, right, the supply of money increases more than the supply of goods, right? So what I mean by that is the percent change. The percent change in money increases more than the percent change in goods produced. So if I can produce 2% more apples every year, it doesn't matter if the money supply expands 10% per year, right? So that difference is inflation, right? I'm producing 2% new apples, but people have 10%, there's 10% more money in this society. So each apple is going to be worth more just based on simple division, right? And we can literally see this, right? Here's the money supply in the United States so cash, checkings, and savings, right? In the United States from 1960 to I guess 2020 is where it's at, right? So you see how it's exponential, right? Before it was a little stagnant, then it just starts to ramp up, right? Like this is an exponential chart. Like this isn't a linear, like it's not a straight line, right? Right? It's a exponential, right? Now let's compare this to the price for food. See how similar that is? It's the same shape, right? Of course, there's slight variances, slight differences, right? This manufacturer could have been greedful. This manufacturing did something wrong. This manufacturing did this, right? But the overall trend is that this has the highest correlation, right? It's the same thing for food. It's the same thing for housing, right? Of course, it looks a little different, but the point is that it's up to the right when it should be the opposite. It should be down, right? Housing price should be going down. How easy is it to build a house? We're seeing apartment complexes being built in 6 months, right? Entire apartment complexes, right? So pricing should be coming down, right? Our engineering, our manufacturing, our intelligence is at an all-time high, right? Right? How long does it take to sell a house, right? The reason why I point to 1970 is because at that time, the government signed a law basically allowing banks to do fractional reserve banking. So that's the start of the extreme expansion in the money supply, right? It got out of hand. Before it was, a little harder because you had to have the gold in your vault. You had to have gold. So if I'm going to lend out $100,000, I gotta, I've got to have $100,000 in gold. And how do you get $100,000 in gold? That's kind of hard, right? That's kind of you have to put in blood, sweat, and tears, right? So 1970s, 2.4 years, right? But now it's 7, right? Exponential. It's getting exponentially hard, right? And now it's probably even higher because I was in 2010. Um, right, here's this one was crazy. Price per can of Campbell's condensed soup. It was literally flat for 100 years. And then boom, right when we changed that money expansion law, boom, right? And I feel like a lot of information today is blaming Campbell, right? And granted, maybe they are being a little greedy. Maybe the CEO makes a little bit too much money. Maybe this, maybe that, maybe that. But right, there's a higher correlation to the truth here, right? One second, my laptop's dying. That cannot happen. I already recorded this once, and my laptop cannot die. So excuse me for a split second, guys. Split second. Okay, okay. All right, back in action. So yeah, Campbell's soup, crazy, right? So here's government reported inflation. It was literally flat since the the you know Declaration of Independence, right? In 1776, literally under this imaginary line I'm creating, and then boom, exponential 1970 when the central bank says, "Yo, bank, if you want to lend out 100 grand, you don't need 100 grand in gold anymore. You don't have to base this money with physical reality, right?" Um, right. So what do we do? What the heck do we do? I mean, all this fear mongering and like what do we do? So there's solutions being proposed that's like, yo, what if we keep the money supply stagnant? What if we don't allow fractional reserve banking? What if we keep it the same, right? $100,000, next example, 100 housing units, price per home $100. Now, let's say I'm able to produce more homes, right? So that 100% increase in housing wasn't offset by 100% increase in money. Now look at the price per home. It goes down, went from 100 to 50. Now let's take it even further, right? So that is a proposed solution, right? Keep the money supply stagnant. Don't create more cash checking and savings. Don't create more. We have what we have, right? And if we need a price decrease in something, you don't give people more money. You produce more of it, right? Um, but then again, right, we're supposed to have deflation. We have tractors, automated manufacturing, AI, and supercomputers in our pocket, that being an Apple iPhone. So, in conclusion, right, I'm one who likes to back up, opinions and philosophies with math because math is having opinions. Sometimes, most of the time in math, it's either you're right or you're wrong, right? So a way I want to mathematicize, if that's even a word, my philosophy is saying, yo, if there's inflation in the current year or when there, right? Because it's basically evident, very, very prominent at this point. 80% of the reason why is because expansion in the money supply, right? It's the food, the housing, the healthcare, the, I mean, you name it. I mean, literally, you name it. The price of everything's been going up. It's the price per laptop, for TV, for electricity. I mean, you name it, right? But then again, there's still greed, right? There's maybe that seller shouldn't have sold his home for 450,000. Maybe he should have just sold it for 400,000. But that's not even the point. The point is that that house went from 100,000 to 400,000 for no reason, right? This is 80% of the reason. This is, I kid you not, this is more than half our problems. But I'm still going to admit there's still greed. There's still bad government policy. Like there may be tariffs that, and restrict the importation of goods so you can't build more homes, right? There may be a tornado, it could be a hurricane, it could be a wildfire, right? But that doesn't affect 8 billion people 365 days, 24 hours a day, right? The population growth in Kansas is probably the same, right? I don't think people are really migrating to Kansas, right? The population is probably the same. But I bet you their housing prices are still going up by the same number as the expansion of the money supply, right? So, one last rant, it's like it doesn't even matter where the money goes. Once you create the money, that's inflation, right? If I take the money and buy housing, housing inflation. If I take the money and buy farmland, farmland inflation. If I take if I take that created money and buy, I mean, you name it. I mean, what can we name, right? If I buy a steel manufacturing plant, we might have some steel inflation, right? Um, So then again, this is supposed to be a simple rant here. I hope I didn't get too complicated. I can get a lot more deep, but in conclusion, focus on the idea of the expansion of the money supply if you want to understand inflation, right? Then you can go down to the 20% of political policy, people being greedful, tariffs, weather patterns, etc. But focus on the expansion of the money supply, right? Um, and yeah, that's the end for now, right? I'm coming back in at least a few weeks on with a video with why do billionaires buy more than one home? It all relates. I kid you not, through my research, the things I've seen online, a lot of smart people say this is at least half of all our problems, right? Um, so yeah, I appreciate those who are still tuned in. I put a lot of work into this, and I'm very reluctant to be able to put time aside share my research. Right, not only, record research, but also share it. So yeah, folks have any questions or whatever. Yeah, so that's it for now. Peace.